Hi everyone, my name is Candice Johnsen. I'm a health coach and I'm really excited to be on the Taruvinga show. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my journey, my personal journey of how I went from completely stressed and anxious in a highly pressurized environment to living a life of peace and calm and joy. And how I got there in my journey, my personal journey in my life, and how I got into health coaching through that journey, which has been a very interesting discussion with Prosper.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we've got a guest whose journey is nothing short of transformative. Now, Candice, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Prosper, and thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited to be chatting with you and the listeners.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. But before we get really excited, is there anything that you want to say, especially to that guy at the back of the room who is about to open their bag of Doritos and drink down 2 liters of Coca-Cola?
Yes. So I'm a health coach, and just to put it out there before we start, that any advice that I might be giving through this conversation is only going to be nutritional and lifestyle advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not qualified as a doctor. So any advice that I give is not to replace any advice from any doctor or other healthcare professional. So yeah, just to put that out there from the start.
Absolutely. In other words, we're all adults here. You make your own decision. But I'm really excited about what we're going to embark on here, Candice. And for those that are tuning in right now, thank you so much for choosing the Online Prosperity Show to be your source of information, when you're going towards a healthier, wealthier existence. Now, our guest today, Candice Johnsen, she not only faced a few personal challenges, but she started off in the high pressure worlds of advertising, in her corporate life. And she found herself at a crossroads where personal upheaval meets professional uncertainty. Some of us have come across those pivotal moments where you actually have to choose, either this or that. And Candice faced these challenges head on, but she emerged with renewed purpose, and her purpose to empower midlife individuals to reclaim their vitality and prevent age-related decline. So, in other words, she comes to us today with a fountain of youth, but I'll let her explain what that is and what that entails. And she's now a dedicated health coach specializing in personal and group coaching, wellness programs, and also employee health initiatives. And her mission is to guide others towards a sustainable lifestyle change through her highly personalized 6-week health transformation coaching program. Okay. And as you will notice, she was just telling me about her habits. She practices what's called high vibrational eating. So she ensures that there's no chemicals that enter her body and there's no chemicals that get on her body. That's it's a very strong commitment, especially in the world that we live in today, with everything that's designed to be sweeter, better, yummier, scrumptious, and whatever preservative it comes with. All right. So I'm really excited to dive into this compelling story so we can explore her past experiences, current endeavors, and the unique methods that she employs to help her clients have a lasting health transformation. Now, Candice, I could go on and talk about the things that I know nothing about. I'm actually getting hungry. Maybe while you tell us a little bit about your journey, I might just start snacking on something sweet and tangy around here. tell us a little bit about how you got started on this journey. Maybe you could start off in your days in advertising.
Yeah, well, I studied as a graphic designer, and so that was really most of my career, but it was such a high-pressured environment that, I think a lot of people who are in any kind of high-pressure environment, you tend to not eat very well, you work long hours, don't sleep very well, and most people will just grab whatever's convenient because it's convenient and you're under time pressure. So, I was always raised eating relatively healthy. I didn't live on junk food, but, I could, I was at that time of my life in a fortunate position where I could basically eat anything and it didn't really seem to affect me, or so I thought. And then I moved into a corporate environment, which was just as pressurized. And it was kind of in the deep end. I was sort of headhunted out of my graphic design position into a marketing communications position. So it was really, really a deep end situation for me where I really had to try and figure things out. So that was a lot of stress and pressure. And, I found myself becoming so anxious that it started to control my life. It was almost like debilitating at times, anxiety and overwhelm. And I remember driving to work one day thinking, if I don't get this under control, I'm actually concerned about my long-term health. And again, not that I ate really badly, but, I would have takeaways of the weekend, like a lot of people do, and thought that it didn't affect me. But, I didn't have any major health issues, fortunately, but, there were times where I would have to take like a week off work and just lie in bed because it was diagnosed as some strange virus that I came down with that couldn't really be explained. So I went through sort of health bouts like that. But I realized that it was a time in my life where I felt like my marriage was ending. It was a very intense time for me. So there was a lot of confusion and conflict within me. I was barely sleeping because of this internal conflict that was going on inside me. And so I sought help. I sought psychological help. And then I also, at the same time, was working with a mentor in my workplace to try and navigate all the stress and overwhelm that I was experiencing in my work life and my personal life. So I was really, at this time of my life, diving deep into healing myself, mentally, psychologically, and what came later was physically. And through this transition, I started going to meditation classes. And that is really what brought me the most amount of peace. I knew what decisions I had to make, and I found the peace within me to make the decisions to move forward in my life. So what ended up happening was that my marriage did end. So that was quite a major transition in my life. But what I was starting to learn from meditation and spiritual teachings, from the meditation teacher that I was learning with, I also started to understand more about eating clean food and how that changes our vibrational frequency and puts us in a better space generally, mentally and physically. And I started to transition towards that. So that was really the beginning phases of it. But in 2019, I was retrenched. And so that was another, massive transition in my life. And by then I had been eating quite well and changed my diet quite significantly. And all of these tools that I had been learning over the years, meditation, mindfulness, and spiritual teachings that I'd been following and changing my diet, all of that equipped me to better be able to manage this major transition in my life from leaving my corporate job into not knowing what I'm going to do next, with a sense of peace and calm and without panic and just jumping into the next job out of fear, because that would have been completely the wrong move. It wouldn't have been aligned with where I was going. And I really wanted to find something that was going to contribute to humanity in a positive way. And Again, another long story, but just following the breadcrumbs and following my path, I found that I wanted to help people eat better and live the kind of life that I was starting to live, because it's so liberating when you do that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us through this, journey, because I mean, your life story and your experience definitely has left a lot of clues for a lot of people, and so much more, a lot of questions, on my part. Now, let's go back to the times where you were in this graphic design, high pressure sort of jobs. What sort of jobs were you involved in? Because I know for sure with graphic design, there's probably, a lot of, back and forth with the client. They want, retakes, redones, and then, approvals and things of that nature, maybe late nights. And I can so see, that whole spiral going in. What sort of jobs were you mainly or heavily involved in?
Sure. It was quite a broad scope of things. When I started out, I was actually an assistant to a creative team. So I would, because I was, a young member of the team, I would have to be there on weekends. I would have to be there late at nights, putting their work together in a presentable way. And then moving on from that, as I became more senior, I was doing design work myself. I was going on photographic shoots. I was planning projects and planning photographic shoots, going to printers, checking off jobs, client changes back and forth, client presentations. So there was a lot involved, and it was very time intensive and time consuming.
Absolutely. And I've
been wearing a lot of hats as well,
I've been to a lot of those shootouts. They have a lot of sugar there just to keep people's spirits up, and usually that ends up becoming the only food that you actually eat, because if you're the person on point
to keep people going. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, while all of this is happening, you also did mention that your marriage was at stake during that time. Could the stress have been coming from work, or was it something that was growth that was happening within you? Because as you then progressed, you did showcase that there was some sort of growth that was coming, from your end.
Yeah, it was a really, really difficult time of my life, because he's such a wonderful man, the man that I was married to, and we'd been together for a very long time, but something deep within me, I just felt like I was on the brink of a transformation, of an evolution, actually. And it just felt like, it's hard to explain, because there was nothing really wrong in the marriage, but there was also something not right. And I felt like I didn't belong there anymore. And I had to really explore that in depth to honor what I was feeling. It went completely against our family norms and society norms, and especially if there's nothing wrong, there was no abuse. So it was really confusing for me, because how do you leave a marriage where nothing's wrong? But it just, something so deep within me was saying, this is something, you're going on a different path. There's another direction for you. And I'm so glad that I chose to follow that and explore it and listen to it, because now I feel like I'm in a completely different timeline than if I had stayed. And, I'm all for trying to make things work, but I'm also for, listening to your heart and what your soul is telling you to do. And just following that direction has been very rewarding for me.
Absolutely. So, and thank you so much for taking us on that bit of a journey, because I did notice, in the growth that happens when somebody starts on a spiritual journey, you tend to now become that which you were not before, and you now get aligned to maybe some sort of a higher calling, and most of the things that we would have accumulated along the way. And in your instance, it came in the form of the marriage. It came in the form of maybe the sugar or the food, and also in the form of the job that sort of just gotten loose to that. I don't know if I'm, seeing that in the way that, you maybe now see it, but obviously not at that time?
Yes, I mean, at the time, it's difficult to put all the pieces together. But yes, in retrospect, you're quite right, Prosper, that, it was so many multiple factors. It wasn't just, one thing. It wasn't work stress that, caused discord in the marriage, for example. It wasn't necessarily the way that I was, looking back now, the way that I was eating was amplifying all of that and exacerbating all of that, because my mind was so erratic, my emotions were so erratic. And now I understand that, when we eat in a certain way, when we eat in a way that supports our health and our physical health and our mental well-being, it's so much easier to handle stresses in our lives when our mind and our mood and our energy is stable. Because just speaking from firsthand experience, it feels like you are going crazy when you are dealing with such intense emotions and such, big decisions, life decisions that need to be made. And, when it feels like your whole world is falling apart, one thing that you can rely on when you are, or one thing that you can also control is what we consume. What we put in our bodies is one thing that we can control. We can't control circumstances that's going to happen, but we can control what we put in our bodies. And that gives us the foundation to better manage all the chaos that can happen in our lives when we are mentally and physically and energetically stable.
Absolutely. And obviously all of this was new to you, and you would have really, really maybe started to fear or panic, because meditation and spiritual teachings, like you say, are taking you to different realms where it's getting you to sort of let go of that which you were, or that no longer, for lack of a better term, serves you. Did you have people around you that would have at least supported you, just so that you felt like you were not quite alone during this time? Or if you had meditation and spiritual teachings, how did these practices maybe help you navigate such turbulent times?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Prosper. Fortunately, I did have a lot of very, very supportive people in my life, friends, family members, my work colleagues. My workplace was also very, very supportive of the transformation that I was going through. So I did feel very supported. And so I did have like a community that helped me through this. But yes, as you say, the spiritual teachings did help me to disidentify with that part of myself that I was stepping out of and that I was no longer being. So, we can become so attached to our identities in this world, our identity as wife, for example, or husband, or mother, or father, or brother, or sister, or our job title, or even as a friend. So we have all these roles in our lives that we become very attached to as this is my identity. And, when those start to crumble away, it can be a very confusing, ungrounded time. So those spiritual teachings really helped me to detach from that and to embrace a new path and rediscover who I really am, not as the person and identity that I thought I was. And with a career change as well, so being retrenched and moving in a different career direction, who is that? Like, who am I now that I don't have that job and that title? So it can be a very, very exciting new world of self-discovery, and not many people actually get that opportunity. And that's why I really actually embraced my retrenchment as a beautiful opportunity to reinvent myself and my career. So yeah, the spiritual path definitely did serve me to also understand how to come more into my center. So meditation obviously teaches that, where the world can be falling apart around you, but when you are within your center, that is what keeps you grounded. When you can become present, then you can observe everything that's happening around you as just experiences that are coming into your field, without them pulling you pulling you into the drama. So I learned to detach from the drama that it felt like my life was like at the time, and just be much more aware and conscious of my behavior, my speech, where I was attached to my belief systems. And when we can also observe what emotions are coming up in our bodies, you know, when I used to be very anxious and I felt like anxiety ruled me, when I could feel that anxiety coming up in my body, I could much more easily just identify with that and just say, oh, this is the experience that has triggered this. I'm seeing it. I can breathe through it and let it go. So all of those tools helped to guide me through whatever I was experiencing. And as I say, it can be very, very empowering when you start to observe life in this way instead of, you know, life happening to you. You have so much more. And I don't like to use the word control, because it's not about a forced control. It's about finding your path and your direction without the external factors affecting us so much. And that's what causes our suffering.
Absolutely. And I quite like the way that you've put it out there, because it kind of reminds me of Michelangelo, you know, when asked about the statue, you know, when all the people could see was a piece of marble, and he just said to them, all I did was remove the parts that were not the statue, and the statue emerged from that piece of marble. And once that statue had been created, and I think that's where the actual transformation, you know, showed up right there, you started eating well. I mean, not that you started, but you started gravitating towards studying, you know, natural health, nutrition. And obviously this came about because you did mention earlier, you could just have bouts of you just sick for no apparent reason. Tell us, you know, how this part of your journey, you know, proceeded then.
Sure. So it's quite an interesting story, actually. So after I was retrenched, I needed to figure out what next. I had no clue what my passion was. I had no clue what I was going to do, what my new career path was. And so in this soul searching and trying to discover what my next career path was, I was spending a lot of time on Mind.Valley. I don't know if you know of Mind.Valley. It's quite popular, self-development online
platform. Yeah.
And I'd been watching a lot of masterclasses, and it really, really supported my process at that time of my life. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to work for a company like this? So I went to their careers section on their website, and I saw that they were looking for a marketing communications specialist for their WildFit brand, which is all about health and nutrition. And this was like a perfect fit. So I needed to do a video interview, which I did. I did about 20 takes and eventually submitted my application, and they contacted me for an interview, which was amazing. So I went through 2 interviews with Mind.Valley, and I was planning to move to Malaysia. And anyway, during that time, I actually had booked a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat here in South Africa, where it's a silent meditation retreat, meditating for 10 hours a day, 10 days, for 10 days, no speaking. So I was away with no contact. And when I returned, I was in touch with Mind.Valley to find out what the next steps were. And they were doing their strategy, and they realized that even though it's a perfect fit, they actually needed somebody more junior for the role that I had applied for. So it wouldn't have been, worthwhile. But what that whole experience, what I gained from that whole experience was feeling that alignment with wanting to help people with nutrition. So, it was my marketing background as well as nutrition that I was interested in. And I thought, what if I can't work on the WildFit brand in the marketing space, what if I became a WildFit coach? So I looked at their coaching programs, and it was because it's in dollars, way more than the South African currency. So it was a bit out of my range. But what that guided me to explore was health coaching or nutrition coaching in South Africa. So I found one in South Africa that's still internationally aligned, and started studying natural health nutrition. So yeah, those are the kind of the breadcrumbs that were before me that I just started following, and that's how everything unfolded. So it wasn't necessarily planned in any specific way. It's just, organically unfolded in that way.
Absolutely. I mean, half of the things, are only there as, spotlights to shine a light as to the things that we want. So obviously Mind Valley at this particular time would have just been there as a street lamp in order for you to, shine a light. It's not a light that you then take to your house. No, it's just in the street lamp for you to be able to see where it is that you're going. But a lot of people struggle to prioritize their health, especially in a demanding career. And they're probably listening to you, Candice, and saying, well, she's already said her disclaimer, so maybe this is not for me. I mean, it's things like this. What sort of advice would you give to someone who's feeling overwhelmed and maybe they're neglecting their own well-being?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that it doesn't need to be difficult. I think a lot of people think that changing their health habits is going to be daunting, and that they're going to be deprived because they need to now cut out all the things that they love. But it doesn't have to be that way. It can be very, very simple, small changes that change your whole life. And that is what I coach people through in my 6-week health transformation. So it can be, I take them through a step-by-step approach. So instead of saying, don't eat that, cut that out, you must never eat this again, this is bad for you, I don't take that approach at all. I help people to integrate healthier habits into their normal lifestyle so that eventually it becomes a new pattern. So it's never a diet, it's an eating pattern that they start to adopt, where I teach them how to integrate more healthy choices and why as well into their lifestyle, so that the more unhealthy choices just end up falling away naturally. So it becomes a much easier transition than just, well, here's a meal plan and off you go and make it work. So it's a highly supported coaching program. And so that's what I'd like to really share, is that it doesn't have to be difficult and it doesn't have to be complicated, and you don't have to feel deprived. And it's also what I love to do is teach people about how their bodies work through this whole process. So, how does nutrition work with our bodies? And we think that just because it's calories in, calories out, and that's not how it works at all. It's all about the types of food that we are choosing. And it can be really quite a fun and explorative process when we also understand that if I choose to eat or drink this is what it's doing either for or against my body, and then it's our choice. So, when people start implementing the changes that I coach them through in my health transformation, they start feeling better, they start feeling lighter, their minds are working better, they're sleeping better. And then they want to make healthier choices because they're feeling so great. And I love it when people cheat. And this may sound strange, but I actually love it when they do, because then they get to feel for themselves how those past choices that they used to make actually made them feel all the time. So, when they make that unhealthy choice, I never reprimand them. It's like, it's a celebration, because how did that make you feel? And then when they say, I really felt awful when I had that, it's like, fantastic, now you know how that feels. So now you can choose how you want to feel.
I like that. Is that what you call high vibrational eating? Because I think it's a very unique concept that you advocate there. And maybe for those that are unfamiliar, can you maybe explain how it entails and how it actually then helps others be, do, and have a happier existence?
Sure. So it doesn't mean that everybody must now eat high vibrational, but what it helps me with is, well, if I can first just explain more about what it is. So thank you for that question, because I think it is, it's not a widely understood concept. So if we understand that everything in the universe vibrates at a different frequency, I mean, this is what Einstein also said. So everything vibrates at a different vibrational frequency, and that's what manifests matter. And the same applies for food. Food also has different vibrational frequencies, just like everything else in the universe does. So there are certain foods that vibrate at a higher frequency than others, and those are the foods that are going to benefit us the most. We can also compare it to a chart. This is getting quite technical, but just to explain it as well, the work of Dr. David R. Hawkins, who's a psychoanalyst and author, and he wrote various books, Power versus Force, and Letting Go, and he developed a cone of consciousness. So that cone of consciousness was also based on vibrational frequency. So, for example, shame, the emotion shame, vibrates at the lowest vibrational frequency. It's when you're feeling your lowest, your densest, your most depressed, your most closed off, and then further up the scale, you work through higher vibrational frequencies. So getting up to courage is at 200, and that's when you break through to hope and joy and love and those high vibrational states. So in the same way, this is what food does for us. So, for example, dead foods that have no life in them. So that would be all the processed foods, any dead food, which would also include animal flesh, for example. So those are lower vibrational because there's no life in them. Then moving up, the higher vibrational foods are foods that are kind of below the earth. So they're still natural, and they'll vibrate higher than dead foods or processed foods with no life in them. So they have life, but they're further away from the sun. So potatoes, for example, those will still be higher vibrational, but not as high vibrational as foods that are grown above the ground and closer to the sun, with the sun energy adding more life to those foods. So the more alive a food is, the more life it's going to give to our bodies. Whatever we consume creates our cells, basically. So if we are consuming dead foods, we're going to feel tired, we're going to feel depressed, we're going to feel sad and angry and shameful and all of those, lower vibrational emotions. But when we're eating lighter foods that get a lot of energy from the sun, fruits, and especially raw. So the more raw foods we can eat, the more life force energy those foods have, and the more energy we have. So that's, in a nutshell, how that works.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for letting us know that, because obviously what we eat and what we consume and things of that nature. Now, I'm going to have to relearn all of this, because when I saw your file come through for the podcast and it was talking about high vibrational food, I was thinking of all the party food and all the popping candy and
not high vibes.
Absolutely. And this is the things that you take people through your 6-week health transformation program, right? And just showing them and teaching them, because I think it's literally a sustainable lifestyle that somebody has to adopt, instead of just learning something obviously without the stress and the overwhelm. I know for sure the people that are making us eat all this stuff are not taking a day off, and they're coming up with new and improved flavors that just are scientifically proven to make your mouth water and things of that nature. Could you maybe walk us through what participants can expect in the journey that you take them in the 6-week transformation? I know you've spoken about it, but what does that entail?
Yeah, thanks for that, Prosper. So I first like to start off with an in-depth health assessment. So I want to know exactly what is going on for you and your health and how that affects your life, because it's not just, eating healthy and all is well. It's like, how does your specific health condition, if you have one, affect your personal life? What are you eating and drinking every day? Are you on any kind of medication? What is your family health history? So I take all of that into account. So it's a very in-depth health assessment. I want to understand you and what you're going through and what your health concerns are and what you're wanting to achieve for your health in your life. So I start there. And then I develop a very personalized plan going forward. So it's not that everybody must now eat raw, high vibrational foods. It's not about that. By default, people do end up doing that, but it's not everybody is ready for that level. So I make it a very, very personalized health program that is tailored specifically to help people to transition out of the health states that is holding them back. So if there's specific things that health conditions that someone wants to address, or if they just want to be healthier because that's their goal, everybody has individual reasons why they want to take steps to improve their health. So once I put the personalized plan together, I meet with a person once a week and take them through the specific steps that are going to help them to shift their health. So, for example, a client came to me, she had extremely high blood pressure. It was literally like off the charts. And she didn't want to take any medication. She didn't want to have to rely on medication to control her blood pressure. So I worked with her. Within 4 weeks, her blood pressure was down within the normal range with no medication whatsoever. So this is how quickly the body can respond, just when we feed our bodies the right foods. So it's all natural. We don't even rely on supplements even. I do recommend supplements where they are needed, but it's not chemical supplements. They're not pharmaceutical supplements because they have actually very little effect on our health. So I guide the people I work with step by step through their personalized journey over 6 weeks. It's an amount of time that people can commit to, and it's enough time to make really, really significant changes in their health. As I said, the body can respond really quickly, and the reason why I spread it out over 6 weeks is that it's a lot easier to implement changes one step at a time. With each session, I make it very educational so that you know what this step is doing for your body. Because it's much easier to make healthy choices when we understand what the impact is. When we know how it's affecting our endocrine system or know how it's affecting our sleep or our stress levels, then it's much easier to make that commitment to transition to a different choice. So week by week, step by step, gradually, small changes are made that actually end up making a massive impact. And what it does is it builds a foundation for health and longevity for life. So if someone continues practicing what they've learned in our 6-week health transformation program together, if they apply that as their lifestyle going forward, they are very likely to have a long and healthy and happy life.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us through that. Now, for those that are inspired maybe by your story and are eager to, test the waters and see what sort of, progress they might make or transformation that might make, and they want to learn more about your programs, where can they go on the internet?
They can go to my Facebook profile or my Instagram profile or my LinkedIn profile. On LinkedIn, it's Candice Johnsen, Johnsen, and on Facebook and Instagram, it's CandiceJohnsen.healthcoach. And there's links there to my program, or happy also to. I love engaging with people who are interested in taking a health transformation journey. So I love to set up a call and just find out more about who they are, what they're wanting for their health, and how I can help them and support them.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. I'll make sure that I put all those links in the show notes so that people won't get lost and maybe end up at a place that has 13 secret herbs and spices that they might end up indulging in while they're waiting for the internet to load so they can find you there. All right. So now, Candice, you would understand not a lot of people will jump on board to something like this. There's always going to be that skeptic who has always eaten in a whole different way, and it's cheaper, better, faster to just snack on something than having to wait for your, like you say, the things that are underground to grow and harvest them. I wouldn't even know where to farm a pizza even if I tried to. So, you know what I mean? How do you deal with things like that, especially when somebody really needs to be helped, but they've never been exposed to this sort of information before?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because not everybody is ready for this. A lot of people are also attached to the way they've been eating and don't want to change, and that's fine. That's their choice. But the unfortunate thing is that they're going to pay for it in the long run. You know, there's a lot of convenience food, especially when people are busy, and they think that they're eating to keep themselves going, but they're actually doing themselves a major disservice, because that kind of food is not sustainable long term. That's when people start having diabetes, strokes, heart conditions, cancer even. You know, eating this way eventually catches up with you. And what I always like to say is, you know, people are living longer, and a long lifespan is great, but what about your health span? So when people are living longer, but their years of living a healthy life are shorter, you know, that means that people are suffering for like 10 to 20 years before they die. And that's no quality of life. So it's fun to eat all the delicious convenience foods and pizza and burgers, and it's fun food. It really is. And as you say, quite correctly, Prosper, it's designed, it's created, it's engineered to make us crave those types of foods. And it's so easy and cheap and convenient. But what is it costing your health? What is it costing your future health when you can't walk properly, when you're lying in bed, with a dreaded disease? It's really not worth it. And so to those people who fear what their future health might be like, even though it's really fun and there's short-term gratification now, is, you know, consider what your lifestyle is going to be like later on. And we all feel invincible when we're young, I know. But for those people as well, even with my 6-week program, I don't necessarily even tell you to stop eating those things. What we do is, if you're going to eat that, make sure you eat this and this beforehand. Or, you know, if you're wanting a sweet treat, then rather have this instead of that. If you want to have a burger, then create it in this way instead of, you know, going to a fast food outlet. So I like to help people still feel like they are living and enjoying food, but in a way that's more sustainable for their long-term health, so that they don't get into health trouble later on in their lives.
Absolutely. Now, Candice, for somebody who probably was working with you in corporate SA there, and you guys were probably doing the burger shoots where you pretend like it's steaming hot and everything else is all fully manufactured, and they use polish to put on chicken just so that it looks yummy in the photographs and things like that. Could you say that maybe your job got you to see the real behind the scenes of what they do to entice people, and then subconsciously you just didn't want to be a part of that anymore?
I don't think that was really a thing, but I completely get what you're saying, because yeah, when you do a food shoot, especially, that food is not edible or whatsoever. Yeah, as you say, there's so many tricks of the trade to make food look appetizing. Like there's a specific color lipstick that's used for strawberries.
Yes.
To make strawberries look the right color, so it looks so appetizing. So yeah, food shoots make food look amazingly appetizing, but I would never ever want to eat the food. Even when I did eat junk food, I would never want to eat the food on a shoot, because yeah, it's definitely not edible.
Absolutely. But I can't thank you enough for the time that we've spent on the call today. I mean, you've just shared with us a whole new way of being. And I've always been told by my parents, to appreciate people that show you a new way of life, people that teach you new music, and people that assist you to eat healthy. So you've actually just done two of those things. And but it would be remiss for me to not ask you this, Candice. You went on a journey when we started this, and you went on a crusade. You left everything else that you'd ever known, or maybe what you'd known sort of fell off. The wheels fell off on that. Did you find what you were looking for?
Yes, without knowing I was looking for it. Yeah. It wasn't the most comfortable or pleasant journey, but where I am now, it was all so worth it. Because as I said, where I am in my life now, this is what I didn't know I was looking for. This is where I didn't know is meant to be my life now. So it's been a beautiful process.
Thank you.
That I'm really grateful for.
Absolutely. It's like finding those 3 chips at the bottom of the bag of your takeaway, right? When you think all the chips are gone and there's those 3 chips and we never knew they existed. Absolutely. Yes. Well, yeah. But now that you're on this path, you're taking others along with, and you've taken some from the Online Prosperity Show that are definitely going to be looking you up, as I'm going to be putting all the links in the show notes. What's next? What can people expect?
What's next is I would love to do more group programs. I have done group programs in the past, and I haven't done one for a while. And for me, it just makes my work a lot more accessible to more people. So it's not as highly personalized, but it's still a very highly supportive program that still takes people through 6 steps of a foundation for health, but in a really fun group environment. And groups work really well because everyone motivates one another. There's a beautiful dynamic. So, I think that's going to be coming up next.
Absolutely. And I kind of feel like you owe us a book, Candice. I mean, your life story and your experience and everything that you've been through, there is a story there that needs to be told.
Thank you. I'll consider that.
Fantastic. Now, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring journey and all these invaluable insights with us today. And I can't wait to see all of this unfold.
Thank you, Prosper. Thank you for having me. I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Absolutely. For those that are watching, thank you too for having come all this way with us. I know you were a bit skeptical, didn't know what this was all about, but I know if you found this episode enlightening, please don't keep it to yourself. I encourage you to share it with somebody who could benefit from Candice's expertise. There's a lot of us that are going through stuff, especially when it comes to our work, our health, and our relationships. And we've managed to touch up on all those aspects there. And I think Candice will be, the perfect guide to help you or show you in the direction of maybe what the next steps could be. And if somebody has recommended this podcast to you, reach out to them, thank them, but also remember to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show for more transformative content like this, because in our next episode, we're going to be exploring ideas designed to enhance your happiness and overall well-being. Until next time, I encourage you to take a proactive approach or proactive steps towards a healthier, more fulfilling life. Bye for now.